Every year, my husband, 45 male, and I, 41 female, throw this big extravagant party in the fall with all the bells and whistles. We have upscale catering, and we go all out on decorations to make our home look more inviting than a banquet hall for our guests. I'm guilty of being okay with our husband showing off our wealth, but in my opinion, he has worked ever since he was 14 years old and has worked at a successful firm that's afforded our comfortable way of living. He seems to be very close with his coworkers and makes sure to invite them to our party every year. This year seemed to be much different as my husband has started to pull away from me. I wasn't sure if it was because he's close to a midlife crisis or not, but he's become rather cold towards me. Our 6-year-old daughter seems to be the only light in his life right now, aside from his career, and I've just pretty much gone along with not confronting him. I've always been on the passive side, and I tend to let a lot of things slide in favor of keeping the peace. He started to work longer nights at the office, and even taking more business trips out of town than he had been doing before. He swears that he's working even more in order to land him an earlier retirement, and in a way, that actually does make sense. We have a few friends who are already retired in their 40s and 50s, something that my husband envies them for. I didn't think much of it, and just chalked his aloof behavior to him being stressed out from work. But at the party, I noticed that he was steering clear of me, as if avoiding me, and his coworkers were giving me all sorts of looks. Some looks were kinda harsh, and the others were of pity. I thought that maybe I had been imagining things, and when I brought it up to my sister, who was also at the party, she said that I was probably just tired from preparing the party all day. I had also noticed that my husband's secretary was sticking pretty close to my husband's side all night as they'd walk around, engaging in conversations with other coworkers. She's in her mid-20s and seems to be busy putting on makeup or checking herself out in the compact mirror at her desk during times I've visited the office to see my husband. When I've brought it up to my husband during the times I've seen her not working and instead beautifying herself up, my husband told me that I was being a nosy nag. Come to think of it, he always seemed combative with me instead of telling his employee to stay on task and do some work. Watching them socialize all night had started making me feel uncomfortable, especially since our daughter was present at the party and kept asking me why my husband hadn't come back to our table yet. He finally comes back to sit at the table that my sister, our daughter, and I are seated at, bringing along the assistant to join us. Even while sitting at the table from across each other, they are engaged in a deep, friendly conversation filled with laughter and inside jokes that my sister and I are in the dark about. It wasn't until my daughter tapped me and whispered to me that something weird was happening underneath the table. I look under the table and I see my husband's hand on the knee of the assistant, caressing it in a way that he shouldn't be. Not wanting to make a scene, I excuse myself from the table with my daughter and ask my sister to follow me. I ask my sister to put my daughter to bed and then for her to join me in my husband's study for privacy. During that time, I'm trying to hold myself together because I'm at this big party at my house with a host full of people, but I'm also sick to my stomach. I knew without a doubt that my husband had to be having an affair with his assistant, and now it made sense why he never pushed her to do any work. Not only was she collecting an easy check for doing nothing, I'm sure my husband was also splurging on her because her entire outfit tonight seemed rather expensive for an assistant who has only been at the firm for a year. By the time my sister came into the study and let me know that she had tucked my daughter into bed, I spilled to her what I had seen taking place underneath the table and that my daughter had also seen it. My sister was outraged that my husband would behave in this manner in our own house and with my daughter in attendance at this party. The fact that my husband was making a fool of me, and it seemed his coworkers had to have known about the affair from how they kept looking at me weirdly all night, I had decided that I had enough disrespect for the night. Holding on to my sister, as I returned to the living room where everyone was still mingling, I told everyone that the party was over and to please get out. My husband asked me what I was talking about and how the party was set to go on for another 2 hours, but I ordered everyone again to leave. His coworkers began to grab their coats and belongings to leave, along with his assistant, who seemed uncomfortable at the way my sister was glaring at her. After everyone leaves, my husband explodes on me and says I had embarrassed him in front of his colleagues for being rude and ending the party too early. Am I the a-hole for putting an end to the party after discovering how inappropriate my husband was to his assistant in our own house and in front of our daughter? After a difficult 2 months after the big party, I have to say that I feel much happier. I didn't realize that I was just content in my marriage until after I realized how much my husband had taken me for granted. I've since then filed for separation, and he's moved out of the home to find an apartment nearby to be closer to our daughter. The day after the party, I finally got the courage when my daughter was out of the house for a play date to confront him about what I had seen underneath the table. He instantly became embarrassed and tried to convince me that I was seeing things. But once I had told him that our daughter saw it first and had alerted me about it, he finally came clean. He said that he hasn't been satisfied with our marriage for the past 12 months because he feels that he's outgrown me. And then when his assistant came along, he started to feel young again with how a younger woman was giving him so much attention. I told him that he was selfish and I hadn't done anything wrong to deserve this. I also told him he was free to let this lady make him feel younger all he wanted because I was done with him. He has been pretty cocky after that, even stopping while with the assistant in his car to collect the rest of his belongings as a way to throw her in my face. The fact that my daughter could have been there during the time was the only thing that had me outraged. I don't care about his mistress or what he does with her, but bringing her into the house without knowing if our daughter was there or not was just downright disrespectful. When I confronted him about it after he came into the house to pack more of his clothes, he cheekily said that he didn't see the problem because my daughter would be meeting her new stepmother soon enough. I don't think he realizes that he's only going to be hurting himself because up to this point, I haven't let my daughter know what's going on. She's very young and innocent in all of this. She shouldn't be harmed or caught in the middle of such a messy situation that her father caused. When I threatened to speak to my lawyer about pushing for the divorce and seeing what could happen if I told my lawyer that the separation was because of his affair, I had kept it vague with irreconcilable differences to my lawyer. He suddenly wised up and stopped with the wisecracks. He then tells me since I'm so immature for my age and acting jealous that I'm bringing his new woman around, he just won't bring her to the house anymore so that I can stop acting like a child. He also says he'll just send for the rest of his stuff and won't come back to the house for a while since I was being so vindictive towards him. I just let him make up whatever narrative that pleased him so that he could quickly get whatever things he was going to take so he could get out of my house. It took only 3 months after the party for things to completely implode even more in my husband's life. This is close to a month after my last update, and let me say that my husband got his just desserts. After finding out my husband and I were separated and headed for divorce, the assistant didn't find my husband appealing anymore, and she started feeling pressured into committing to a relationship with him. She eventually quit the company and started dating one of my husband's younger coworkers, leaving my husband devastated. Now he's apologized for everything, and he says he wants to rebuild our marriage, but I'm so past that now. I've been a lot happier and even healthier since the separation, and I refuse to go back to a marriage where a man can so easily cheat on me. For the time being, my daughter is living full-time with me, and my husband has visitations on the weekend. I've managed to shield her from everything in a way, and just told her that her father and I are better off as friends. No, you are not the a-hole for ending the party, and you actually did it without causing a scene. If that had been me in your shoes, I would have done something worse and outed the affair in front of everyone. Good on you for holding your composure during such a hurtful revelation. In a way, you can say that the affair saved you because you were able to realize that you were not as happy as you thought in your marriage. Hilarious that your husband now wants to save the marriage after the mistress dumped him for someone younger. The irony. My cousin's getting married in December and she handed out the invitations a few days ago. To my surprise, my fiancé and partner of 8 years was not invited as my plus one. Plus as a member of our family. My mom was pissed by this move because many of us found it completely disrespectful for my cousin and her partner to exclude a long-term partner who's also my fiancé from this. For the record, my cousin and I are very close. We've grown up together. We were like best friends growing up and only grew apart because of conflicting schedules and stuff. Her fiancé and soon-to-be husband is a lovely guy. She's been with him for 4 years, but he's not been around the family a lot. Even my cousin's own parents have only met him around 5 or 6 times throughout the years. While my fiancé is at this point an established family member, he's been around for nearly a decade. Was around even before we started dating. He's been with me since we were in high school. He's always around and with me on most family occasions and even in everyday life stuff. Most of my extended family knows this man a lot. Same can be said for my cousin's fiance, which is okay, but I'll explain why I'm highlighting those details so much. My cousin said that she doesn't consider my relationship to my fiance serious enough, and she and her fiance don't know him that well, and she's got a rule that if I wouldn't treat him out to dinner, then why should I feed him at my wedding? That's funny coming from a couple where the fiance is barely around, and we've only seen him a couple of times all these years. Anyway, after some back and forth conversation with my cousin, I told her I'm not gonna come to her wedding because this is really hurtful, and if she feels like that, then fine. I respect her wishes and her wedding, but I respect my fiance more. She then got mad that I prioritized my fiance's feelings over her wedding and said I'm letting her down because we grew up together and she can't believe I put this guy, as she referred to him, above her and her happiness. I told her I'm sorry, but inviting me to your wedding is not a favor. You're not doing me a favor. If you can't respect my relationship, then don't expect me to come on there and celebrate your love when you can't even respect mine. I can't force you to invite my fiance, but I can choose to stay out of it. My fiance comes first. Your wedding means little to me when you set rules on how my relationship should be viewed. We haven't spoken since that day. I feel really bad for being so blunt with her, and I don't know if I'm the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Sounds like she's upset that the family likes your fiance better and wanted to take him and your relationship down a peg. I suggest that you sit back and let her steer this bus. She will either come to you and apologize or run around to other family members complaining about you, which will likely backfire for her. If anyone asks, say, I understand that it's her right to create the guest list for her wedding, but I am not interested in spending time and money to celebrate her relationship when she has so little respect for mine. I wish her all the best, but I will not be there. So, here it goes. About 17 months ago, my 28 male friend, 29 male, was going through a rough patch and needed money. I'm not particularly affluent, but I had some cash that I wasn't in immediate need of, and I trusted him, so I gave it to him, with the agreement that he'd give it back as fast as he could. Luckily, he was able to get back on track thanks to the money. He got a nice job, started saving, and in just 17 months, he was ready to pay me back the full amount. He was really thankful, and I felt great for having helped him, so everything was perfect. The problem started when he got mugged by two men in the street while he was carrying the money. He knocked on my door like 10 times and looked distraught when I saw him. And when he told me what happened, he felt awful. I could see it in his face. But he ended the story with, I'm so sorry you won't get your money back. That confused me, so I asked him what he meant. Apparently, since what he was carrying was already considered my property, he feels like it's the same as if I had been the one who was stolen from. So it's in no way or form his responsibility. He just got caught in the middle. He said he doesn't have any obligations towards me anymore. And it's really unlucky, but he shouldn't have to pay twice his debt because of some thieves. I get where he's coming from, the whole situation sucks, but I don't get why I should be the one to suffer all of the consequences. I'm saving up to buy my own apartment and gave him all that money with zero interest because I wanted to help. I'm not even the one who got robbed, and frankly, I don't think that would have happened to me. I'm like 6 inches taller than him. He honestly doesn't look very intimidating. After a lot of discussion, he agreed to pay me back half of the amount, but said he felt like I was being terribly unfair. How am I unfair? Honestly, I'm not satisfied with his outcome. I won't sue or anything. It's not like we even documented the loan. But I want to know if I'm as insane as he's making me feel for thinking he should still give me all of my money back. Just to clarify, we live in Argentina, so 15K is a lot. Thieves are common, and banks are not trusted since they've kept our money before. Corralito. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? He didn't walk the whole way to my house with the cash. I rent an apartment in the city, and it's really hard to find somewhere to park sometimes. It has to be an open spot in the street. He found a spot about 4 blocks away, and was robbed while walking those 4 blocks. I confirmed that he indeed parked there when we went back to check for cameras, none, and inspect the area. I realized how weird it seems to the rest of the world that that amount of money wasn't in the bank. But in Argentina, we don't really trust banks. We have a really bad economy, and our government is just as bad. And there have been instances where the government kept all of the money that was in the banks. Google Corralito. Every few years, rumors resurface that it'll happen again. So, almost everyone has most of their money at home or somewhere else. While it is weird that he chose not to pay in installments, I told him that it wasn't urgent, as long as he eventually paid me back in a reasonable time frame. So it wasn't that strange to me that he chose to wait to have it all. But maybe it should have been. He's been my good friend for over 15 years, so I blindly trusted him. Even with this, I learned the hard way. He had the money in a backpack. Yes, 15,000 US dollars. The police here couldn't care less about the people, and they're really corrupt. I already tried contacting them, but they haven't heard my case yet. I doubt they'll do anything. I don't have any documents that could aid me in a legal fight, but I'll see what I can do. It feels awful to be thinking about suing someone I consider so important in my life. Again, thanks a lot. It's probably denial, but I still think he genuinely was stolen from. But I won't stop fighting for my money just yet. Please, remember I don't have the objectivity you all do. This person has been one of my closest friends for about 15 years. We've been through a lot together, so of course I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and not immediately think he's screwing me over. OP, he never paid the debt. He owes you. Convenient how he was robbed on the way to pay. You should ask him, if he was robbed on the way to pay his mortgage, would he still have to pay the bank? If he knew the liability of carrying cash was being mugged, why did he not have you meet him at the bank or give you a cashier's check? OP, I'm calling BS on the mugger tale because he thinks that it's your money that was stolen. Demand the money, kiss your friend goodbye, and your money unfortunately, because you know he's never paying you. Want to bet a large ravenous dog eats the next $15,000 right before he gets to your house. Best wishes, OP.